All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. Another Foods for Health live stream. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about the dangers of a high sodium diet for your brain and for your body health. All right, guys. Thank you so much again. So happy to have you in here on a Sunday morning, November the 14th, already halfway through the month already. I can hardly believe it. This month is just absolutely flying by. Sorry I'm a few minutes late. Was just getting a couple of the technical issues sort of figured out there, but looks like we're good to go. And as always, if you guys can just let me know you can hear me, let me know the microphone and all the software setup is working perfectly. That would be greatly appreciated. So thank you so much. Hope you guys are having a great weekend. I know I am. Already 7 a.m. here, up and at it, nice and early, ready to talk about some health-related issues with you guys. So I thought this would be an interesting topic, kind of coming off from our sugar topic of last week and diabetes and everything of that nature. Kind of talking a little bit about a high sodium diet. And when we're talking about high sodium diet, of course, we do need some sodium, some salt in the body. What we want to really focus on today is when we're eating too much. And it's very, very common in today's society and with most people's diets. Remember, diet just in the foods that you're eating on a day-to-day basis, just like it was with sugar, it's this exact same thing with sodium. There's a big proportion of society where their sodium levels are just too high, and that can lead to health complications. Again, we're not here to say that you have to be at zero sodium. Of course, that's going to be next to impossible. But you want to try to limit and maintain a healthy sodium level so that you're not dealing with cognitive issues. All right. Issues with the body that, we're going to see in numerous studies come up time and time again that people are dealing with. All right. Not just in studies. All right. But also, talking with friends, with family, things of that nature. We don't always have to just look at the studies. We can see with our own eyes, talking with clients and things of that nature as well. All right, diet that's recommended to their doctor, trying to cut out certain foods that are related to sodium due to chronic diseases that they have been dealing with. So again, thank you so much. I love seeing everyone coming in here so early on a Sunday morning to start our conversation, and thank you so much for the thumbs up, guys. I really appreciate it. So that's our discussion for today. Again, let's be healthy. If we're eating too much sugar like we were talking about last week, let's try to cut back a little bit on that. It's the exact same thing for sodium. If we are high on our sodium intake, and again, it's not high if we're eating foods like fast foods or frozen foods or things like chips for that instance. There's a ton of foods that are high in sodium. All right, one would be those processed meats we talked a little bit about. All right, but there's tons of foods out there. All right, people will ask me, what's the daily recommended intake of sodium? Well, it sort of changes from person to person. I think 2,300 milligrams is what's usually recommended. A lot of the times, I know just the numbers from the United States or the Western world, a lot of times it can be double that or more than 1,000. All right, so 3,400 milligrams per day. So that's a lot higher than we're really wanting to get. Well, good morning to you, Lindsay. Thank you so much for joining me again. Really appreciate it. Good morning to you, Eileen. Thank you so much listening from Florida. Again, love Florida. Lots of listeners from Florida. I really appreciate it. But yeah, we're trying to get in, again, things that we don't always even think of, all right? It can be like those processed meats, soups, for instance, cheeses, all right? Certain sandwiches or, broth, things of that nature. We just have to be careful on the foods we eat. The most important thing that I always tell you guys is make sure, when you're eating certain foods that you check the label and you know what's going into your body. And I just call that mindful eating. If we know what's going into the body, all right, it's a lot easier to adjust. If we have soup, a lot of people will think that, soup is healthy, and absolutely can be. And we're talking about canned soup here or frozen foods. All right, but a lot of the times that has added sodium to it. All right, it can be very, very high. You can get your daily recommended amount just from one can of soup or, frozen foods and things of that nature. Definitely if we're having fast foods. So just be careful with that, guys. But it's great to see you in chat. Thank you so much. And I'm really looking forward to this discussion with you guys. So I think a good way to start off, you guys can probably guess the types of foods. So we're not going to get into the types of foods really that are high in sodium. I just named a whole bunch, all right? But you kind of want to stay away from your frozen foods, your fast foods, foods that have added sodium to it, everything along those lines, right? And again, thank you so much. And if you're in chat, let me know where you're from. Let me know where you're listening from. I really appreciate that. And say hi. It's always great to have the engagement. So let's talk a little bit about, and the thing that I want to kind of get going here is I want to start talking about, how sodium, just like with sugar, how sodium affects the brain, all right? Because it can really, we've seen in numerous studies, all right? And it was interesting when we talked about the brain imaging studies done with sugar, but it's the exact same thing with a high sodium diet. We've known through numerous studies the effects that sodium can have on cognitive function. All right, we'll talk a little bit about cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, all right, the effects that sodium can have on the body. But let's talk a little bit about how sodium can affect the brain. Lindsay, United Kingdom, that's perfect. So if I'm not mistaken, I tried guessing last time. I believe it's around noon for you there, which is perfect. All right, that's a great start. You can starting off, your afternoon listening to our sodium discussion. So thank you so much. Nice and early here. So let's talk again. We'll talk a little bit about the body, but first let's talk a little bit about the mind. All right. How does it affect our mind and our brain? All right. So one thing we want to be careful of. All right. We've seen in numerous studies, one way that sodium can affect the brain is one. All right. There's been a link with certain brain related issues. One, stroke is sort of thrown in there a lot of the times. Again, that can be included in the body, that can be included in the mind, the brain. But what we do see is that there is a correlation between high sodium intake and cognitive impairment. And so that can affect things like memory, that can affect things even like sensory issues, all right, focus, all right, attention, all of those different things. Trying to avoid sodium. Oh, nice, Vivian. I hope I'm pronouncing that right again. Treatment and now trying to avoid sodium and eating healthy. That's the best thing that you can do. All right, avoid sodium as best you can. Eat a healthy diet. If you're eating healthy foods, fruits, vegetables, whole foods, all right, you're going to do a great job staying away from that sodium. All right, but cognitive impairment, that's not something that's talked a lot when we think about high sodium intake. We know about, the effects that it has on the body, but how exactly is it going to affect the brain as well? All right. So what we saw, all right, people who were taking a little bit more of that high sodium intake, again, we'll get into all of the different body stuff, but with the brain, all right, increased odds of cognitive impairment. And again, that can mean a bunch of different things. A lot of the times what that means is it can really affect memory, all right, memory issues. All right, it can also affect focus. It can also affect how we're feeling. That's another important thing. And we talked a little bit about that with sugar intake, all right? That sodium intake, all right, one, you're going to be feeling sluggish. Our focus is going to be off just a little bit. It can also affect mood disorders. And when we talk about mood disorders, I want to make sure that you guys talk with your medical practitioner about that as well, just because it's a complex issue. So just like sugar, people who were taking high sodium levels or had a diet that was high in sodium were more susceptible to things like depression and anxiety. All right, now, there's a lot of things and factors that go into that, but what these studies are showing and what the results are showing, all right, those who were taking a high sodium intake diet were more susceptible to mood disorders and also cognitive impairment. And it just makes sense because when we take a lot of sodium into our diet, if we're having fast foods, if we're having those frozen foods, canned soups, like I was saying before, all right, that's greatly affecting the brain. Remember, our brain is made up of water. Our body is made up of high levels of water. When we have high levels of sodium, all right, it's dehydrating us. That's obviously going to affect things like our brain, which is an organ, other organs, which we'll get into as part of the body. But it's important that we really focus on, just how is it affecting our memory and our cognitive function. All right, there's a lot of things out there, that of course are going to be having a negative impact on cognitive function. But two of the biggest ones right now are sodium and sugar. Nothing processed. Any weight? Drink water. Walk minimum 5. Oh, we'll get into that in a second here, Vivian. That's a great question. All right. So huge effects on cognitive function. All right. On cognitive impairment. All right. And why would we think, all right, that it could have an effect on cognitive impairment? Well, one thing, all right, that they're kind of seeing is, when we break it down, it's having an effect on, our blood vessels in the brain. So high sodium intake, all right, affecting blood vessels within the brain, all right, which is leading to this dysfunction within the cells, which again is going to only make cognitive impairment more and more likely. All right, we also know, all right, and this is again why it can affect our mood, because we know that there's a huge correlation between gut health, all right, and overall brain health. As they say now, our gut is our second brain. We also know that too much sodium, all right, is going to affect our overall gut health. All right, excess salt affects the gut brain. Sometimes they'll call axis and things of that nature. All right, but I want you guys to also keep in mind, not only does it affect our blood vessels, but also high levels of sodium, all right, are going to reduce blood flow to the brain. All right, very, very important to keep in mind. All right, a lot of people will think, well, salt's okay. We need salt in our diet, and absolutely. But if it's over our levels or recommended daily the daily recommended value of sodium, all right, you're going to have that reduction in blood flow to the brain. And it's that reduction of blood flow to the brain which is going to lead to more and more cognitive impairment, and over time, the long-term effects, cognitive decline. All right. So we want to make sure that we're really focusing, all right, not only on the body, because we're going to have a huge discussion on that, but also on the brain. All right, cognitive impairment is a huge thing, all right, for a lot of people. All right, and also blood flow to the brain is going to be leading to more and more of those mood disorders, things like depression, anxiety. And the other thing is the foods that we're getting that are usually high in sodium, very low in micronutrients, like canned soup, frozen foods, or fast foods, things like that, low in nutrients, all right, high in sodium intake. Of course, that's going to affect blood flow to the brain and affect our blood vessels and our brain cells. So, just be careful. I want you guys to always keep in mind, it's not only going to have a negative effect on the body, but also on the brain as well, on our mind, on our mental health. And that's something that's so important in today's age. All right, a lot of people, we're seeing it's almost an epidemic of mental disorders and things of that nature. And again, this is why you have to speak with your medical practitioner, because it's a complex issue. Yes, we talked about how sugar, all right, can lead to increased feelings of sadness, of depression, of anxiety. The studies show the same thing with high sodium intake. But again, it's a complex issue. There can be numerous reasons why that's happening. I just wanted to let you guys know that the studies are telling us when we have a high sodium intake and our diet is full of sodium and we're past that recommended daily intake, the fact is we're having an increased risk of these mental disorders, all right, which is again scary when you think about it, all right, because a lot of people are getting in high sodium without even knowing it. All right, if you look at it, most people have a can of soup and not even look at the label, and that's okay. Again, this is non-judgmental, or they'll add a little bit of salt to their food, okay? And they'll do that usually, maybe they'll do that at each meal, all right? Or maybe if they're having a couple of meals a day, maybe they'll do that for a few meals. When you do that, the daily recommended value, guys, is about 1 teaspoon per day. If you're constantly adding that salt, you're already going to get that teaspoon pretty much, all right? It's going to add up more and more, not even including the added salt that's in your frozen foods, that's in your fast foods, and things of that nature. Because don't forget, even if you're getting fast food, the healthiest choices at places that are selling fast food are going to be high in sodium. All right, it's just a fact. All right, it has to be high in sodium because they need those preservatives, and it's also needed in there for taste. They want to sell food to you guys. All right, and sodium increases the taste. All right, and again, the other important thing for the brain, high sodium intake is addictive. That's why I always tell you guys when I do my consultations, I'll make sure that I draw a line at nighttime, and I want people to tell me what exactly they're eating at night. A lot of the times it's either sweets or it's savory, all right, high sodium foods, all right. And again, we have an addictive response to that high sodium. That's why chips are so popular. Things like pretzels, all right, other things that are high in salt or sodium, fast foods. That's usually when it happens. There's an addiction portion to it as well. And the more and more sodium we have, the more the brain wants. All right, it's like any other, it's just like sugar. All right, it's just like sugar, guys. And the thing is, we wake up, usually you can tell with sodium, same thing with sugar. When you wake up, you can tell the effects that it has on the body, but also on the brain as well. All right, it's going to dehydrate you. If you're getting dehydrated, you're probably going to have things like a headache. All right, so that's why when people drink alcohol, they're dehydrated. Usually those hangovers come and we're having headaches and things of that nature. Now, if you're coming into chat, say hi, guys. Let me know where you're listening from. It's great to have you all here on a Sunday morning, 7 a.m. I'm trying to point out the effects that sodium can have on the brain. We've gone through numerous ones already: cognitive impairment, focus, memory issues, mood disorders, things of that nature. Now, just with Vivian's question here, so I'm eating healthy, nothing processed, but not losing any weight. I'm sure people can sort of relate to this as well. The important thing is, one, you're eating healthy. The other important thing is that you're walking 5 kilometers per day. So you're eating healthy and you're getting exercise, 5 kilometers per day. That's the important part. You start with that, all right? You start with the health portion, guys. The aesthetic will come. Now, if you're not losing weight, all right, the reason why we're not losing weight, guys, and Vivian, just answering your question real quick, I know we're going off sodium just a little bit, but you've mentioned that you're avoiding high sodium foods and eating healthy. The reason why you wouldn't be losing weight in that situation, most likely, all right, you might want to speak with your medical practitioner because just in case, there could be something else that pops up. But in that case, you're just eating too many calories right now. And again, that's not to be judgmental, but to lose weight, you have to be in a calorie deficit. All right, to maintain weight, you're eating at a maintenance level. If you're gaining weight, you're eating a surplus of calories. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. Dallas, go Cowboys. All right, thank you so much. Welcome from Texas. But that would be the reason why, Vivian. All right, so you might just want to cut back on calories a little bit. The other thing that you might want to do, all right, is if you're walking 5 kilometers per day, that's great. Because remember, we want to get 150 minutes of aerobic exercise per week, guys. It used to be 150 minutes of exercise per week, but now we want to shoot for that 150 minutes of anaerobic exercise with a little bit of strength training or resistance training thrown in there. You can do that with bands. You can do that with weights. Doesn't really matter. But the two things I would recommend, if you're eating healthy and you are working out but you're not losing weight, I would suggest cutting back the calories just a little bit so that you're in a calorie deficit. And I would also maybe increase the intensity of the workouts. Now, does that mean you have to go to 10 kilometers per day or 15 kilometers per day? Absolutely not. But let's say the 5 kilometers per day is taking, let's just throw it out there, let's say 30 minutes. See if you can get that 5 kilometer walk in there in 25 minutes. So you're increasing the intensity of your workout. Maybe you can add in hills, things like that. All right, so that's my kind of quick take on just that sort of process, Vivian. Again, you can speak with your medical practitioner. There might be something there. They know your medical history. But if we want to lose weight, guys, even if we're working out, we could be working out an hour and a half a day. But if we're still eating in a surplus of calories, then losing that weight is going to be difficult because we have to be in a deficit to lose weight. So I hope that answers that, Vivian. Hopefully you're still in chat there. All right, and don't get discouraged. It takes time to lose weight. Sometimes when we're making changes to our body, all right, if we're eating healthy, if we're starting to work out, it takes some time to the body to get used to that. It takes some time to start losing weight. All right, so again, don't get discouraged. So high sodium intake, guys. All right, don't forget. All right, we know that we're allowed some sodium within our day. We have to get some salt in there. All right, the daily recommended value is usually somewhere around 2,300 milligrams of salt. That's about a teaspoon. All right, on average, people are having in the Western world at least about 3,500 milligrams or more. I think it's more. All right, I think that might be a little outdated. I think the average person is getting a little bit more sodium in their diet just from working with different individuals. All right, and just, not even that people are adding salt or anything like that. There's just so much more salt added into the foods and normal foods that we eat. All right, a lot of people, again, like I said, will go buy salads at the store. Salad dressings are loaded with sodium, guys. All right, loaded. Also, there might be some processed meat thrown in there, things like that, preservatives. All right, again, it's just so much easier for us to actually get that sodium into our diet. All right, like if you think about it, salad dressing, all right, it can range anywhere. I saw studies, it can go up to about 620 milligrams. If our daily recommended value is 2,300, all right, you can do the math. You're over a quarter there just by having, simple salad dressing. So just try to keep that in mind, guys. Same thing, if you're having, let's say, a popular thing that I'll hear is people having canned vegetables. Well, if we're not draining and rinsing the canned vegetables and we're just adding them into our diet, that's almost 400 milligrams of sodium right there. All right, and that's 1/6 of your daily intake. So that's why I'm saying, all right, it's not always that we're just adding salt to everything. It's not always that, we're trying to, get foods like fast foods and things like that. I just brought up soups, I just brought up salad dressing, and I just brought up canned vegetables. If you just have those things in one day, boom, you're well over your daily recommended intake of sodium. You're going to be at like 5,000 milligrams. All right, easy. All right, which is about double your daily intake. If you're adding a little bit of salt to your food, even more than that. And then that's when you start getting into some of the dangers and some of the consequences, all right, for our overall health when it comes to our brain, cognitive impairment, memory, mood disorders, even headaches, things of that nature. That's why it can happen, and that's why it's happening more and more on a consistent basis, and that's why I say it's an epidemic of high sodium intake, just like it is for sugar. Pamela, good morning to you. Nashville's in here. Thank you so much for letting me know. Great to have you in here, Pamela. Thank you so much, and great to have everyone else in here. Great to see Lindsay back in here. Vivian, I hope you were able to hear the answer to your question there. Great having you in, Mike, and Pamela, great having you in. So thank you so much. So just be careful with that high sodium intake, guys. All right, high sodium intake. All right, like I said, all right, a lot of, like I said, about 2,300 to 2,400 milligrams is the daily recommended intake, the maximum that you would be allowed. Generally, that's about 1 teaspoon, and they found in different studies that people were having about 3,500 milligrams. I think that's fairly low. That's fairly low, guys. But we need to make sure, right, we're staying away from that. We already mentioned the certain effects that it can have on the brain. Now let's talk a little bit about the body. One, easily, right off the bat, for the body and the brain, because it's going to dehydrate the brain as well, but also dehydrate the body. For having a diet that's high in sodium, one of the worst things that can happen is that we're going to be dehydrated. And we already know that there's a problem in society today of people being chronically dehydrated, only having 1 to 2 glasses of water, maybe 3 glasses of water, maybe even less. I've talked to many people, all right, and they'll have, a coffee in the morning, maybe an energy drink throughout the day, and then that's it. No more. All right, maybe they'll throw a tea in at night or something along those lines, but usually it's like a coffee in the afternoon. And it makes sense if you're doing that type of stuff. Again, this is why we're not here to be judgmental. If you're taking if you have a diet that's high in sodium, of course you're going to be, one, feeling dehydrated. So what are some of the symptoms of being dehydrated? Well, feeling sluggish is one of them. Low energy, low focus. If you're dealing with all of that stuff, then of course you're going to be reaching for coffee, all right, to try to give you more energy. It only makes sense. All right, same thing with energy drinks. And if you're doing the energy drinks, you're just compounding the problem, because usually those energy drinks are full of sugar. You're only going to get more and more dehydrated, and it's only going to make the issue worse. All right, and then you just keep grabbing for more. It's a vicious cycle, guys. The best thing that you can do, if you want to increase focus and increase energy levels, one, if you're not, number one is drink more water. All right, sometimes people can get a little bit bored with water, but you just have to. All right, you have to just add some water in there. You can add some flavoring in there if you want. Throw some lemon slices in there, some lime slices. You can throw orange slices in there. Doesn't matter. Whatever you have to do, try to increase your intake of water. You can add green tea. That's one of my favorite ways to add a little bit more water into my diet. All right, or add cucumber. All right, I was on a huge cucumber water kick. Made it a lot easier for me to get water into my diet. And again, thank you so much for the thumbs up, guys. 15 thumbs up there. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the support. Start with the goal of losing 1 pound a week. Oh man, Michael, you're talking my language. 1 to 2 pounds. That's what I always tell individuals in consultations. That's what I tell people in these chats. You're saying exactly my language here, my friend. All right, let's say it's 1 pound. All right, 4 pounds a month. All right, a little bit more. All right, so like 4.5 pounds a month. All right, 8 pounds in 2 months, 16 pounds in 4 months. Very doable. All right, and it's something you're going to sustain because you're not in a huge calorie deficit. So one, you can sustain that lifestyle, and two, you're not killing yourself in the gym. You're not in the gym for an hour and a half, or you're not walking for, an hour and a half a day. It's something that you can sustain. But I always say healthy weight loss, 1 to 2 maximum pounds a week. All right. If you're doing 1.5, let's say 1.5, 6 pounds a month, okay, even maybe just a little bit more than that, 7 pounds a month. In 3 months, you're going to be at 20 pounds. That's huge weight loss, and the chance that you're going to be able to keep it off is much better. So yes, you're exactly right, Michael. 1 pound a week is just fine. It's a marathon, not a sprint, guys. Very doable. Absolutely. Thank you so much for your advices. I'll follow. All right. Thank you, Vivian. Yeah, just keep that in mind. You're doing great. You're doing all the right stuff. You're eating healthy. You're staying away from the high sodium foods. You're eating healthy and you're exercising. Beautiful. All right. You start with the health. All right. Overall health. The aesthetic will come, guys. I always tell clients and I always say in these chats, all right, the most important thing is your overall health. All right, we don't need to just be focusing on the aesthetic every single time. Now, the aesthetic is important in losing weight just because we want to be, staying away from obesity and being overweight and things of that nature. But start with the health, and you're doing the right things there, Vivian. Tammy, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining me once again. Again, like I always say, Tammy, always in chat. Great to have you in here. Appreciate it so much. Good morning to you. Always great to see you. One of my biggest supporters, like I always say, one of the biggest supporters of the channel and of the live stream. So thank you so much, Tammy. I hope you're having a great morning. Most people do love salt. That's the issue. It's addicting, right? Salt is very addicting. Right? And like I said, the reason why they're not going to be taking salt out of the foods, it'd be great. Someone made an awesome comment. It'd be great for sugar if companies took half the sugar out. So let's say soda or anything like that, and start that way. But it's not going to happen because they know the more sugar in there, it's more addicting. It tastes better. All right. They want to drive sales. All right. And then that's the whole key to everything. Oh, you're welcome, Tammy. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. So let's talk a little bit about the effects that... Okay, one thing that I just wanted to make sure that I brought up in relation to brain health again, guys. All right. In addition to cognitive decline over time, all right, and a reduction of blood flow to the brain, which again is why we're going to have cognitive impairment, all right, memory issues, all right, less focus, less drive, all right, feeling sluggish, all of that thing. We also know that there's going to be more inflammation caused within the gut, within the digestive system, all right? And like I was saying before, all right, we know that response, all right, the gut is almost seen as the second brain, all right? We know that that's going to have negative cognitive issues for us if we're not having proper gut health. And gut health, that's going to support cognitive function. All right, high sodium intake is only going to hurt cognitive function in that way. And that's having to do with our immune response in the gut, guys. We want to make sure that the immune response in the gut, we're allowing good bacteria in the gut to thrive, reducing bad bacteria, because we know if we're having a bad immune response in the gut and bad bacteria is allowed to grow, and we're not having good bacteria in the gut to thrive, that's going to lead to cognitive impairment issues, guys. We see that in studies all the time. Michelle, good Sunday morning to you as well. All right. Again, another huge supporter of the channel. Thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it there, guys. Thank you so much. Hope you're having a great Sunday morning. Thank you, Michelle, for joining once again. So keep that in mind as well. All right. It's going to affect the gut, which again, in turn, all right, is going to have consequences for overall brain health, all right, and cognitive impairment. All right, and dehydration, all of that bad stuff. We want foods that are going to be promoting good bacteria in the gut to thrive. High sodium intake is only going to do the opposite. It's going to allow bad bacteria to thrive. All right, and even, you could kind of run into issues of like yeasts and things of that nature, which we want to stay away from also. All right, so we don't want that bad bacteria to thrive. We want high nutrition foods. The thing is with salt, table salt, all right, there's no nutritional value. All right, no nutritional value. Okay, so I think we sort of have shown how dietary salt can, affect brain pathways, blood vessels, things of that nature, which is going to cause cognitive impairment, guys. All right. So keep that in mind. Studies continue to show how, high salt diets can affect the brain. All right. We've seen that in a number of different ways. All right. Brain blood vessel dysfunction. All right. Blood vessel damage, inflammation, all of that different stuff, guys. Just be aware how that is an issue and a consequence of having a high sodium diet. Now let's talk a little bit about the body, and thank you so much. Every time I look, those thumbs up just continue to go up and up here, guys. Thank you so much for the support. Now let's talk a little bit about how it's going to affect the body. All right, how is it going to affect the body? All right, because that's a huge one for us. All right, and we know that the brain is a big one, all right, but the body is just as big, all right. And one thing that we really have to be careful of, all right, we know it's going to have acute issues, so things that are going to happen in the short term, but we also know long-term effects are going to be very dangerous for our overall health as well. All right, so high sodium diets are really going to affect the body in a negative way, just like it does the brain, but let's be careful of the body as well. What's a good salt substitute? Well, that's a very interesting question. All right, I think pink Himalayan salt is something that you might want to look into. It seems to be one of the go-tos. Again, you have to use it in moderation. All right, but that's kind of been a substitute that's grown in popularity over time. So pink Himalayan salt, sea salt was really popular at one time. That's sort of on the decline, just because we still see that it's having the same negative effects on our brain and on our body. All right, but I think if you're going to add one, the pink Himalayan salt is sort of the way to go, but you just have to make sure that you're having it in moderation. The reason why that's so popular and it's being used as a substitute is because the minerals, all right, the nutrition aspect of it, all right, I think it can cause less inflammation as well. So that's one substitute. I think the best substitute is just no salt, Tammy, to be honest with you. All right, trying to add certain things, all right, that are going to take away that salt in general and try to, increase the taste, because I know, like you mentioned before, you're a fan of salt. All right, if you are a fan, all right, pink Himalayan salt might be the way to go. All right, but then again, we just have to make sure that we're reducing the intake as well. Okay, that's what you use. Perfect. Never thought about it hurting our brain. Yeah, it's interesting, and that's why I like doing these discussions, because it's things that sometimes people haven't really thought of before. And until I started looking more and more into it. All right, again, that's not things that I would just come to, no pun intended, come to mind. We know the body, but we know also, just like sugar, go back and listen to the sugar discussion. Sugar is horrible for the brain, our overall brain health. All right, and again, it's very addictive, just like sodium is. All right, our brain wants more and more. That's the vicious cycle. All right, we know that it's hurting cognitive impairment. We know that it's hurting overall brain health, blood vessel dysfunction, all of that stuff, mood disorders. But the thing is, when we start adding high sodium diets and we're doing this for long term, all right, the brain wants more and more. It's just like any other drug, all right, and so it wants more and more, it's craving more and more, and usually we'll give it more and more, and then that's just going to create more consequences for us in the long term, guys, not only for our brain but for our body as well. So just be aware of that, guys. I tried to go over a little bit of that. All right, just again, let's talk a little bit about the body. And if you have any questions, please feel free, all right, to ask your questions in chat or to point out some points like Tammy's doing right now. Michelle does a good job, which Vivian and Michael have done already. All right, I really appreciate that engagement, guys. So let's talk about the effects that, even in the short term. One, all right, we know that if we're having a high sodium diet in the body, all right, we're going to be it's kind of funny because we'll talk a little bit acute but long term as well. All right, dehydration is a big problem. It's a big problem in society as well. A lot of people are chronically dehydrated, all right, and having a high sodium intake, all right, a high sodium diet is only going to compound those issues. It's only going to make it more and more, all right, it's only going to make it worse. And that's what makes it addictive, because if you're chronically dehydrated, it's tricking our body and our brain into thinking, well, my energy's low. This is when I'm going to grab chips. This is when I'm going to grab, fast food and certain things to help make us feel better. All right. But in the long run and in the long term, it's only going to create more and more consequences for ourselves. So we just have to be careful with that, guys. Again, we get that reward response from the brain, which I talk about all the time. That reward response, that very, very short window where it's like our brain is thanking us. All right, thanks for the sodium. Thanks for the sugar. I feel good. I'm happy right now. But that only lasts temporarily. With sugar, it was like an hour window. All right, with sodium, it's the same thing. All right, where you get that crash right after. And then the horrible thing is you wake up the next day and then your body isn't thanking you anymore. You're almost regretting the choices. I know I've been there. I tell you guys all the time, sodium and sugar with me do not mix. I feel horrible. The first thing that I usually will have to do is just have to drink tons of water. And the reason why is because I tell you guys all the time, it's good psychologically and it's good for our bodies to have quote unquote cheat meals, all right, and regular meals. And usually these cheat meals are going to be a little bit higher in sodium and sugar. All right, so how, again, is it going to affect the body? Dehydration. All right, dehydration is probably the biggest one right off the bat. All right, so acutely, we're going to be dehydrated. The funny thing is as well, all right, if the short term, if we're eating too much salt, we're also going to have water retention. All right, so you're going to have that bloating feeling. You're going to have that puffy look. I don't know if you guys can relate. I definitely get it. If you have like chips or high sodium foods, all right, you sort of get that puffy feeling around the eyes. That's all water retention, that bloating feeling, okay? And that's the acute term. This is not quite yet, we'll get into it, but more of the long-term effects, all right? But you get that bloating feeling, guys. I don't know if anyone in here can relate to that, but I know that that's a big one. Thanks again for the thumbs up, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. But first, water retention. Increased water retention, which can, lead to a number of different things, all right? And the best way to get rid of water retention, and it kind of goes back to our dehydration, is just to drink more water. You need to have extra water to compensate for the extra sodium that we ate. You need to flush out that sodium, all right? Because if you don't, you're going to have that water retention, which results in, that bloating, the puffy look, the swelling, usually in the face, all right, hands, feet, all of that. In the long term, that can be very dangerous because that's creating inflammation, and we'll talk about that a little bit as well. All right, now the other thing, all right, again, intense thirst is a big one. All right, and you guys, I don't know if you guys, when you wake up, if we haven't had water in a long time, all right, but the first thing I do when I wake up is I have 2 glasses of water, just because we've gone all day, or sorry, not all day, all night, 7 to 8 hours, sometimes even more, because people will cut off their water intake before bed. Sometimes you can go 10 to 12 hours without any water. When you're waking up, all right, you're going to be dehydrated. All right, that's a long time without any water intake. So in the short term, all right, we're going to want to make sure that we're drinking that water, because if we're not, all right, then we're going to have negative sodium to water ratio. All right, it's going to be imbalanced. All right, we need to increase fluid so that we get a better sodium to water ratio. All right, and again, we want to make sure that we're doing all of this. The best thing that you can do in the morning is make sure that you're drinking water. A lot of people will turn to coffee, but if we want more energy and everything like that, then make sure that you're drinking the water. All right, again, helps with focus, helps with the body. Drink more water to get rid of water retention. Noted. Perfect. Can consumption of sodium and sugar over a long period of time be reversed if it has already caused problems? That's a great point. Well, Michael, one thing that we talked a little bit about with sugar, all right, I'll just answer that one first, over a long period of time. So not acutely. One of the big ones was pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes. What studies have found, all right, the good thing is if we cut back on the sugar, all right, it can be reversed. We can decrease the risk of pre-diabetes and also of type 2 diabetes, even if it's in the long term. All right, now with sodium, all right, and we'll get more into this as well. With sodium, one of the big ones for long-term effects, all right, is that it can have the ability, it may have the consequence of increasing blood pressure. All right, so a lot of heart-related issues in terms of high sodium intake diets. Now, the nice thing is, all right, research is already showing, all right, if we have a diet that's rich in salt, so if you're eating, higher than that daily recommended intake of salt, it can significantly increase blood pressure. All right. The nice thing, all right, if we reduce, all right, even if it's over time, it can have a positive effect on regulating and starting to reduce blood pressure as well. All right. We just have to make sure that we're staying on top of it. All right. Again, yes, it can increase blood pressure. Can it be reversed? Absolutely. But we need to make sure that we're doing the right things in order to reverse it. Again, you can speak with your medical practitioner about that as well. But we know as soon, even acutely, that's the interesting thing here too, guys. If you have fast food or if you have a high sodium, meal, then it's going to temporarily increase your blood pressure as well. All right. So things that you can do to lower high blood pressure. One, cut the sodium out or lower the sodium intake. All right. Lower that to start. All right. Other things that you're gonna want to do. All right. Increase like fruits and vegetables, whole foods. All right. Make sure that you're getting high nutrient dense foods into your diet. All right, that's one way of doing it as well. The other important thing is an active lifestyle. We need to make lifestyle changes. All right, if we're living a sedentary lifestyle, all right, it's not going to help us too much with lowering that blood pressure or reversing, or with if we have high blood pressure, again, that's going to be a risk factor for heart disease. All of the things I just mentioned are going to be helping to reduce the risk of heart disease or heart disease related issues. Now, sometimes high blood pressure can be genetic, all right, so it can be a little bit tougher to reverse. But what I'm saying is that you need to make sure, if you want to have the ability to reverse some of these issues, 1, reduce the sodium and the sugar. 2, add in whole foods, all right, things that are high in nutrients, micronutrients. Turmeric, all right, so anti-inflammatories, that's a huge one as well. And then also getting exercise, living a non-sedentary lifestyle. All right, but it's very interesting. That's why I like with the sugar, like pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes, not so much type 1. Type 1 is very complicated again, and that's a very dangerous disease, something you're going to want to speak to your medical practitioner about. But we see study after study, if you lower sugar intake and get it more to moderate levels, all right, or cutting it back as much as possible, then you can see a reversal in certain, issues that can come from high sugar intake. Same thing happens with high sodium intake. So yes, to answer, for some of them, all right, not everything sometimes can be reversed, all right, it depends. We're going to talk about liver damage with high sodium intake. Again, can it be reversed? Yes, all right, it just depends how much damage was done, how much cardiovascular damage was done, all right, but we can start that path of reversal. Again, this is why you have to speak to your medical practitioner. So I hope that answers your question, Michael. What kind of food is higher in sodium and sugar? Okay, Sophia, so that's a great one. So we talked about some high sodium foods already. I'll give you a couple that might be well known to you, some that maybe might not be well known to you, but I'll list them off for people here who are sort of newer into the chat, might have missed it here. One easily is going to be fast food. All right, fast food is going to be, of course, high in sodium. All right, it's just the nature of the game. All right, you're going to have high sodium intakes if you're having fast food. Frozen foods are going to be higher in sodium. All right, another thing that's going to be higher in sodium. All right, canned foods. I talked about canned vegetables having almost 1/6 of your recommended daily value of sodium, all right, which is, of course, all right, when you think about it, vegetables, unless you're draining them, all right, or rinsing them, are going to be higher in sodium, all right. The other ones, soups, salad dressings, processed meats, all going to be higher in sodium. Sugar, it can speak for itself a little bit, all right. That's going to be, again, your fast food. There's more sugar in there than you think, but also your sweets, your soda. We talked about this a little bit before. A big proportion of your sugar intake is going to be coming from soda, energy drinks, and fruit juices. I think it was over 50% come from those three things alone. Now with high sodium, again, it's going to be like frozen foods. It's going to be fast foods. It's going to be canned foods. Maybe that can be the three that are going to be a little bit higher. And then also the other thing is, just be mindful. All right, we add sugar sometimes to our foods. Like coffee is a big one. A lot of the times we add salt to our food, so that's a big one as well. All right, my pleasure, Sophia. You're welcome. Thank you for asking the question. Duke's seaweed. I don't know too much about Duke's seaweed, to be honest with you. Maybe you can tell me a little bit about Duke's seaweed. I know like a lot of seaweeds are fairly low in sodium themselves, so I don't see maybe there wouldn't be an issue there, Lindsay, if there's no sodium. So sorry I can't give you a more definitive answer on that one, but Duke's seaweed, I'll have to look into that a little bit more. I'll be honest. I don't want to give my take on it just because I don't know a whole bunch about it. I do know that, most seaweeds and things like that are low in sodium. So, that's going to be a benefit for sure. But I don't know specifically all the details about Duke's seaweed. So sorry I can't give a more definitive answer on that. So chronic dehydration. Let's get into some more. All right, with the blood pressure as well, guys. There's been numerous studies. All right, the long-term effects of eating too much salt on the body, high blood pressure, increased risk for heart disease, guys. All right. The nice thing is, like we pointed out with Michael's question, all right, with high blood pressure, all right, if you lower that salt content, a person can help lower their blood pressure levels. That's shown in studies, so it can be reversed. All right, that's not for everything, but I'm talking specifically about blood pressure. All right, now remember when I said like 3.4 milligrams or 3,400 milligrams, like 3.4 grams per day of salt? We found, all right, usually, that's why I thought it was low. All right. Usually it's going to be somewhere like 4.5 grams or 5 grams, like I was saying before. It's usually going to be probably somewhere double the daily recommended. All right. But that's going to have a significant increase in both systolic and diastolic blood pressure. So top and bottom numbers of the reading, guys. All right. So we already know that long-term effects are going to most likely increase high blood pressure levels. All right, so we need to make sure that we're aware of that. That's a very dangerous effect that high sodium diets can have on the body. Why? Because high blood pressure, all right, is one of the major risk factors for heart disease, for stroke, all right, for things of that nature. All right, again, just be careful with that. Right, and also, you know, it's kind of interesting as well because, you know, we see it all the time, all right? Blood pressure. We know that that's going to be, you know, a big one for high sodium intake. But the other big one is going to be just cardiovascular health, heart health in general, all right? You know, a lot of people are sensitive to sodium like I am. Eating too much sodium, all right, has the ability, like I said, for, you know, high blood pressure, but also for stroke, for heart disease, because it's going to be creating inflammation. All right, cholesterol, not so much. It can, all right, but, you know, more so of that blood pressure, stroke, heart disease, inflammation, and things of that nature. The other thing that we need to make sure that we're aware of when it comes to heart health and sodium, all right, not only is it going to create high blood pressure, but it's also going to damage blood vessels, all right, our blood vessel walls, all right. So this is things that can, you know, lead to the weakening of the heart, which is very dangerous, guys, all right, very dangerous, all right. That's why they call it the silent killer, all right, why heart disease is the silent killer these days. We've got to be mindful of that, all right. We have to be mindful of that. Atherosclerosis can be increased, all right. Hardening of the arteries can be increased, all right, blockages and things of that nature. So heart health is just one of those big ones, guys, that we just really need to be aware of. Really make sure that we're staying on top of it, all right? It's clear that high blood pressure is one of the leading causes of not only sodium intake, but also an increased risk of cardiovascular disease. All right, so make sure, the nice thing is, and like Michael asked, studies show that if we lower our sodium intake, that can be reversed. All right, I think as long as we're also doing the lifestyle changes as well, getting, you know, high nutrient foods, you know, increasing water, living a non-sedentary lifestyle, I think that's going to be a good, you know, way to reverse some of that high blood pressure as well. Dulse seaweed. Again, that's okay, Lindsay, no problem. Dulse seaweed. I'll have to look more and more into that. Like I said, seaweed is usually generally pretty good in terms of the amount of sodium that's in it. So off the top of my head, it doesn't seem like it would be a bad thing. Let me give it a quick look, just because I've never heard of it. So yeah, so you know, there's a lot of things that can again, you just want to be careful about whether you want to eat it every day and things of that nature. All right, but what it's saying here is that there's tons of antioxidants, fiber, protein, rich in vitamins and minerals, even some healthy fats, which is nice. So, that seems like a nice choice. All right, very nice choice. It's got all those nice things in it. All right, it's all that's going to help with overall heart health. To be honest with you, those are all the things that you're looking for when it comes to overall heart health. So, again, I don't want to give a definitive answer just because I've never looked at it. I just gave it a quick look right off the top of my head, but just know that it does have a lot of benefits when it comes to our overall health. All right, and the overall body health, and with heart health. All right, it seems. Okay, so we know heart health, guys. All right, that's why it's called the silent killer. We have to check blood pressure. We have to be mindful that eating too much sodium, all right, can not only create high blood pressure but increase the risk of stroke, heart disease, all right, damage blood vessel walls, all right, increase the hardening of our arteries, increase the risk of atherosclerosis, increase blockages, all of that different stuff. All right. And the thing is, often, all right, the warning signs and symptoms are very hard, all right, to find. Sometimes we don't even know. And then that's why it's called the silent killer. All right. A lot of people, and I've seen it in the news lately, a lot of people are having heart attacks. And there's been some signs and symptoms, but the major signs and symptoms that you would think if you're going to have a stroke or heart attack, a lot of people don't see it coming. All right, and they're having this in their early 40s. All right, and that's more and more common now because, like I was saying before, high sodium foods are becoming more and more common in our everyday diet. All right, more and more things like that, and a sedentary lifestyle. We can't underestimate the lifestyle, all right, changes that we need to make as well in order to get the full benefits of increasing our overall health when it comes to a high sodium diet. Too much salt is bad for you during pregnancy. Absolutely, Sonia. It seems like it definitely would be. We want to make sure, we're eating foods that are high in nutrition. Again, salt is going to be devoid of any nutrition, and it's going to be, dehydrating and all of that stuff. So just be on the lookout for that. Again, speak with your medical practitioner. I'm sure they would tell you the exact same. And Sonia, great to see you in chat. Thank you so much for joining me again. Susan, good morning to you. Sonia and Susan, Lindsay, Sophia, Pamela, Michael, Tammy, great to see all of you guys back in here. I hope you're all having a wonderful Sunday. Thank you so much for joining me today. So just be on the lookout for that as well, guys. All right, so we know, all right, heart disease, high blood pressure. Those are probably the two main things for the body. All right, and we can't take that lightly. All right, we cannot take that lightly. All right, heart disease is one of the leading things for premature death right now. One of the leading reasons for premature death. I think heart disease, all right, and some sort of, heart disease risk factors, all right, are some of the leading reasons for death. And that's why it's a scary thing to talk about, but it's also why we need to make sure that we're bringing these things up in our discussions. Because as I've said before in numerous discussions, about a quarter of the world's population is going to deal with some sort of heart health issue, whether that be from high blood pressure, high cholesterol, things of that nature. As sodium increases more and more in the foods that we eat, high blood pressure, all of those other things that I mentioned, I don't have to go over them again and rehash them. I've said them more than enough times. I think you guys get the point. All right, it's only going to increase the risk factors for heart disease when we already have 0.25%, so 25% of the population that's going to be dealing with heart disease issues. Lester, good morning to you. Good morning. No problem. Hey, better late than never. We're in an hour in. We usually go for a little bit longer than that. So no worries. There's still lots of discussion to go over, Lester. So thank you so much for joining me today. So just make sure, guys, we know cardiovascular disease will be on the rise, all right, if we are increasing, all right, or eating too much sodium in our diet. If we're beyond that recommended diet, all right, I think it's around 2,500 milligrams, so about 2.5 grams of sodium per day. And again, it's going to be probably double than that. Not only will it be consequences and non-beneficial for the body, but for the brain as well. If you're interested in that brain discussion, again, I went over it quite a bit in the beginning of this first hour. You can go back and give a listen to. There's tons of brain issues that can happen from a high sodium diet. We need to hold the food industry accountable, like the tobacco industry was held accountable for nicotine addiction. That's a great point, Michael. The problem is, I 100% agree. 100% agree. It's just going to be hard for to really hold the fire under the food industry when so many people are purchasing the foods, all right, that are high in sodium, all right. A lot of the times, sometimes, and it's hard to say, but a lot of times personal accountability will come into it as well, all right, just because the food industry is booming with all of these foods that are high in sodium. You see fast food booming. It's being consumed more now than ever, all right, and it doesn't matter. That's everything from McDonald's to Subway to, you name it, all right. There's tons of stuff out there, breakfast places, all right. People are more and more, and especially during the pandemic, which is horrible because that's when we were our most sedentary. But Michael, you bring up a great point, all right. That would be a great thing to happen. It's just, we know these studies are out there, but nothing is really being done about them, all right. The tobacco industry is a good kind of example of that. All right. And they were kind of had their feet held to the fire a little bit too, but you still see, cigarettes in stores. You still see, nicotine and all of that stuff out there, other nicotine products. All right. I think maybe what you might see is maybe some sort of, how at least here in Canada, and I think in the United States, probably in Europe as well, and other areas of the world. All right. Some of those labels that give, like the warning labels that are on cigarettes and nicotine products, we see it all the time here in Canada, all right? That has to do with tobacco and nicotine and all of that stuff. That might be a good start as well. Just dealing with sugar and sodium. What salt would you recommend for cooking? That's a great question, Sonia. We talked a little bit about pink Himalayan salt. Again, you'd still want to use it in moderation, but when you're cooking, certain recipes, of course, are going to ask for a certain amount of salt, all right? And it's hard to get a salt substitute, all right? But I think pink Himalayan salt is probably your best bet. It has the highest amount of minerals, trace minerals in it. All right, just make sure that you are trying to keep it in moderation. But pink Himalayan salt is a big one right now as a salt substitute. Sea salt was a big one, not as popular anymore, but that could be one for you. Again, it's just not as popular as it was like 5-10 years ago. That's all we were hearing about. But pink Himalayan salt is the big one right now. All right, so if you're gonna have if you're gonna have the salt, pink Himalayan salt is probably gonna be a good one. The reason why, all right, the big question is it better than regular salt? All right, again, some studies will say yes, some studies will say no. All right, it's often thought to be healthier than regular table salt, even healthier than sea salt. All right, there's not really any huge conclusive research studies where you're actually seeing that it is healthier. All right, just because, again, at the end of the day, all right, it's sodium chloride. All right, just like salt is. All right, so we just have to make sure that we are aware of that. There are benefits to it. All right, you can cook with it, you can eat with it. All right. Again, and the main big one is that it contains more minerals. So, you'll find, all right, trace minerals, guys. It's not like there's huge amounts of minerals in it. I think I read something, there's like 75 minerals and trace elements found in pink Himalayan salts, which you're not going to really find in table salt, or less common in sea salt. But, we'll get some things like potassium, calcium, a little bit of magnesium, some iron, but again, it's not in huge amounts. But compared to table salts, all right, it's a lot more trace minerals than compared to those table salts. That's the thing that we should probably point out. But the other important thing is, all right, let's say if we're gonna do a gram of pink Himalayan salt and a gram of table salt, yes, there is more minerals in that pink Himalayan salt, but the sodium levels, so if we're looking at in terms of, let's say the recommended daily value is 2,500 milligrams, you're getting about 370 milligrams from pink Himalayan salt and 380 from table salt. So the sodium levels don't change very much. That's why I say it's so hard to find that substitute. If you're going to cook with one, or if you're going to be using one, probably go with the pink Himalayan salt just because of the trace elements in it, but just make sure that you're using it in moderation, because it still has pretty much the exact same amount of sodium in it. I hope that helps answer your question, Sonia. Great questions today, guys. Awesome questions. I love the engagement. Michael's been throwing some really good ones out there. Sonia, you've been throwing some really good ones out there. Lindsay, Sophia, thank you so much. Susan, always great to have you in here and having you in chat. So I hope that helps answer your question just a little bit better. But, is it truly better? Again, I wish I could point to a study that shows, all of these different consequences for the brain and body won't be happening or won't be showing up with pink Himalayan salt, but just haven't found any. All right, I do know that there is more minerals, but are those dangers reduced? That's the big question. I looked back at the package of those ramen and it's very high in sodium. It's crazy. That's the thing, Susan. You're absolutely right. The foods that we eat, unless and I kind of brought this up a little bit earlier, unless we're looking at the labels like salad dressing, like we would think salad dressing is healthy because we're putting on salad, we're putting it on greens, all right, things like that. Sometimes we might dip broccoli into it or other different vegetables, but the sodium intake, all right, the sodium levels on salad dressing, all right, again, it's going to be super high, all right, it's going to be super high. All right, things like soup. All right, a lot of people will try to lose weight based on soup, but the sodium levels, the sodium levels are going to be off the charts when it comes to soup and things like that. So the dangers of the brain and the body are going to be still there when it comes to salt. What about kosher salt? Is it a good alternative? I love these questions, all right, when it comes to like a good alternative to salt. I think the easy answer is there really is no great substitute when it comes to salt. I think the best way to put it is just make sure that you're having it in moderation. All right, if you're trying to reduce salt, all right, like if you have high blood pressure, then you should be reducing salt. All right, if you want to reduce heart disease and kidney disease and kidney damage and liver damage and all of that stuff, then we have to reduce sodium. We have to restrict sodium in our diet. Again, some of the best choices, I like that you brought up kosher salt, because some of the better choices, all right, and this is comparing it to table salt. It doesn't mean that it's a great choice, but a better choice than table salt would be like your pink Himalayan salt and your kosher salt. All right, the only thing is it's still going to have pretty much the exact same sodium levels. All right, so a lot of the times, even with kosher salt, because we know that the recommended daily value is about 1 teaspoon per day, with kosher salt, a lot of the times people will be saying that you should not have more than 1/4 teaspoon a day of kosher salt. All right, just because there's so much other salt and sodium in other foods that we eat. So again, the alternatives can be just as dangerous, all right, and have just as many consequences for the brain and body. Even though it might be higher in minerals and everything like that, you can still find, all right, and get those dangers from having those types of sodium substitutes. But very interesting, very interesting. And you're welcome, Lindsay. But yes, Susan, you bring up a great point. Like, unless you're looking at the labels and knowing exactly how much salt is in everything, then it's very tough. That's why I say, the average that found in studies, I think it's a little outdated. I think people are eating more than 3.4 grams of salt a day, or sodium a day, whatever you want to. Salt or sodium, I'm changing back and forth, but same thing. All right, I think it's going to be higher. Half a teaspoon of salt, all right, is very easy to get. That's the daily recommended value. If you're having half a teaspoon, boom, just in that half a teaspoon, if it's added to certain recipes or if it's added to foods and things of that nature, then it's not hard to, double that recommended daily value, or even triple. It's not hard at all, guys. All right, just make sure, and as Susan points out, exactly, have that mindful eating, exactly what's going into your body. Mac, I hope that it helps answer your question, because kosher will come up a little bit from time to time. I'll even get it sometimes in messages here and there. I just want you guys to make sure that the sodium levels are still the same, and it's that high sodium, all right, which is going to create the consequences and literally the potential damage to the mind and the body. All right, it doesn't matter if it's pink Himalayan salt, kosher salt, or table salt. Celery. Are you sorry, Sophia? Celery salt? Celery juice. Okay, let me read your, because I know celery salt is a big one out there. Is celery too much sodium? Because I use celery juice and my blood pressure is very highly reading. So celery, all right, so if I'm guessing that you're just juicing celery. So if we're looking at the nutrition within celery is just fine, unless you're eating a ton of celery per day. Celery is really not that high in sodium. Again, if the recommended daily value is about 2,500 milligrams, I think one stalk of celery is less than 30 milligrams. So you're not getting very much in one sort of stalk, but you just got to be careful, because some people will sort of, especially if you're trying to be mindful of how much salt you are intaking. I think celery is one of the fewer, or at least one of the least dangerous ones that you're looking at. Like I said, unless you're eating a ton of it, I guess if you're juicing celery, you might juice 2 stalks of celery, 3 stalks of celery. You're probably going to include it with a couple other ingredients to get that juice. So let's just say you're having 2 stalks of celery, that's 60 milligrams of in and about 50 to 60 milligrams of salt, when the daily recommended value is 2,500. So that's not a huge proportion of salt or sodium intake. So I think if you're trying to reduce high blood pressure or things of that nature, celery might not be the one that you want to cut out, because there's a lot of great benefits to celery as well. Plus, it's great with water, and we've been talking about water retention and everything like that. So I hope that answers your question, Sophia. What is the comparable study between the U.S. and East on this subject? Are they more healthier than us? Well, that's an interesting question, Michael. I think on this topic, Western intake, I don't know the specific numbers between West versus East when it comes to salt. The only thing that I know is that, when it comes to overall high sodium diets, it's an issue that's becoming worldwide. So not just something in the U.S. or the Western world, because U.S. and Canada, we eat a lot of the same things. We're starting to see more and more fast foods in eastern part of the world, just like there is in in the US or in the western part of the world, which I think is quite interesting. You're seeing a lot of the same restaurants kind of popping up, which are very high in sodium. And again, certain meals and things like that, that's coming in. We could list all these different foods. A lot of the times, they will have high sodium intake. I think the important thing to remember is high sodium intake is, it doesn't matter if it's east or west. It's becoming a worldwide epidemic. All right, so it's happening all over the world, not just in the U.S. or in the western part of the world here. It's happening everywhere. Are they more healthier than us? I think that's kind of an interesting question. The easy answer is yes, right? Because people look at obesity rates in the U.S. comparable to other parts, which is true. But again, don't forget, all right, obesity is just one factor to overall health. All right. Yes, obesity brings with it a number of different health risks. All right. Heart disease and things of that nature, but it's just one factor within overall health. Sedentary lifestyle is a big one as well. Like there's numerous studies, and maybe you guys have heard this before as well, but sitting is becoming the new smoking. So if you're not obese but you're not getting any exercise, you're living a sedentary lifestyle, even if you're in let's say you're eating maintenance amount of calories, but you're getting low micronutrients, again, your health is going to be taking a hit or a step back because you're not getting those micronutrients, antioxidants, anti-inflammatories, all of the important things that we need in a diet, a well-balanced diet, to be healthy. All right. So a lot of people will look at just the obesity rates and things of that nature. But again, obesity is just one factor of overall health. So again, I hope that helps answer your question, Michael. But for a comparative study, the important thing is it's happening everywhere. High sodium diets are increasing all over the world. Okay, great, Sonia. I'm glad that helped answer. Yeah, don't worry too much about the celery. I think if you're going to be juicing celery and adding it to a green juice or something like that, or adding it to your smoothies, again, the nutritional value outweighs the amount of sodium that you're going to find in celery. Like I said, even if you're having 2 fairly large stalks of celery, you're only getting about 50 to 60 milligrams of salt. I would be much more worried about, your canned or frozen foods or fast foods. That would be some of the stuff that I would try to cut out before celery for sure. Thank you so much for the thumbs up, guys. I just saw that we just hit 30 thumbs up. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Okay, let me just make sure that I'm good morning. Oh, nice to see you, Jennifer. 99 Jennifer. I hope I'm pronouncing that. I think it's Jennifer in there. So thank you so much for joining me this morning. Good morning to you as well. I'm so happy to catch you live. Well, great. Is this your first time catching me live here on stream? If it is, then welcome. If not, then I apologize. Can you let me know what I can eat for acid reflux? Okay, well, very interesting. So acid reflux, even that's on the rise as well. GERD and things like that. You're very welcome, Sonia. GERD and things like that. Apple cider vinegar is probably one of the best, not the best, but it's one of the most popular ones that you see on YouTube and sometimes in those lists for reducing acid reflux and things like that. You see it all the time. And apple cider vinegar, yes, I've worked with clients that have seen a huge benefit to acid reflux and heartburn and all of that stuff. Again, it's kind of dependent. It depends from person to person. You see it in YouTube videos, and again, we don't know for sure. Sometimes can it be for the video? Again, I don't want to be a pessimist or anything like that, but you got to look at your own experience and things like that. It's not going to work for everyone. Foods that I would say, all right, apple cider vinegar can be one of them. It's helped a lot of people. It's helped clients that I've worked with, all right, with acid reflux, all right. But things that are going to help, all right, with acid reflux as well, Jennifer, are going to be foods that are high in fiber. All right. So again, whole grains and things like that. Some of the best ones that I can think of are like sweet potatoes, beets, things that are high in fiber, like oatmeal. All right. Oats, like I tell you guys all the time, are some of my favorite. It's one of my favorite foods. I have it pretty much every morning for breakfast. All right. But high fiber foods are going to help. All right. Now, you can get that from whole grains. You can get that from root vegetables. Like I said, one of my favorite carbohydrates, and again, these are complex carbohydrates, healthy fiber sources and healthy carbohydrate sources. So don't be too scared of carbohydrates. I know a lot of people are, but oatmeal, brown rice, sweet potatoes, red potatoes, things like that. And then also just green vegetables. Broccoli is a good one. Like I say, broccoli is like the king of vegetables. Good for pretty much anything. All right, so sulforaphane is going to help with that. And there's good fiber in broccoli as well. All right, and then another one would probably be maybe something like asparagus. I think I read something where that could be helpful for acid reflux as well. Again, we pointed out celery. Celery is a nice one also. Cucumber is a nice one for fruits and things like that if you're dealing with acid reflux. Bananas seem to help a little bit. Fennel tea, I think, was one that I read was a good one for acid reflux. I think, fennel tea and fennel were nice. They're kind of soothing for the stomach, good for heartburn, good for acid reflux. So, you could have fennel or fennel tea. I think that might help with what you're dealing with again. So try those different things. Again, speak with your medical practitioner. Sometimes, food alone or things like that can't always fix the problem, but I hope some of those choices, all right, can give you a good idea on what you can eat for acid reflux. I would stay with high fiber foods. That can even include nuts and seeds. Almonds, I think, are a great choice. Walnuts, pumpkin seeds are a great choice as well. Again, you're very welcome, Sophia. My pleasure. Since sodium is on the rise, do we need to increase our water intake? Lester, very good question, very important question. Absolutely. One of the biggest things, all right, that I was mentioning, if we're eating a high sodium diet, guys, one of the biggest things is water retention. All right, we're going to be holding more water. All right, and the other thing is chronic dehydration. All right, and we already know that people are dealing with chronic dehydration. There's two reasons to that. All right, one is they're just not consuming enough water. So a lot of the consultations I'll do, it's like 1 or 2 glasses a day. All right, and try to think of how much water you drink a day. All right, it's kind of interesting. Unless you're tracking it, sometimes it can be very tough to know just how much water that you're drinking. All right, a lot of the times you're drinking less than you actually think. But one reason is they're just not drinking enough water. 1 to 3 glasses a day, especially if they're exercising. That's where my consultations will come in. All right, if you're sweating and things like that, you need way more water than that. And again, you don't jump from 2 glasses to 8. You just like Michael, we were saying with Michael before, trying to lose that 1 pound a week, 1.5 pounds a week. Again, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Go from like 2 glasses to 3 glasses to 4. Do it like week by week or bi-weekly. Within a month or 2, you're going to be at that 3 liters of water, because that's usually what's recommended. 3 liters to 6 liters. 6 liters is quite high for most people. That's going to be for people who are, larger people, all right? So taller, more weight, and for people who are working out pretty intensely. So they're sweating a lot. They need to replenish. But absolutely, Lester, to answer your question, all right, since sodium is on the rise, do we need to increase our water intake? Yes. 1, because, we're just not drinking enough water. But 2, the major one is, all right, we're eating more and more sodium. Excuse me, sorry. The average, we want to be eating around 2,500 milligrams. The average is around 3,500 milligrams. I think that's even a little bit low. I think it's around, 5 grams, so 5,000 milligrams. So we want to make sure that we're increasing our water intake. Absolutely. Great question. You're welcome, Jennifer. My pleasure. Thanks for sharing your knowledge and most importantly, your time. My pleasure, Michael. Thank you. Thank you for the comment. Thank you guys for being here. I was drinking celery juice too for high blood pressure, and it did raise my pressure. I found out that it was low in potassium. Now I'm okay now. That's good. That's good, Susan. Now the thing is too, all right, drinking celery juice for high blood pressure, and it did raise your pressure. All right, now sometimes we have to be careful, all right, because, unless that's the only thing that's changing, sometimes, certain foods, all right, we might think that it's the celery, but it could be something else. Of course, if it's increasing your pressure and you spoke with your doctor about it, then cut it out. All right. I found out that I was low in potassium. Again, that's going to be that's going to have other effects as well, all right, especially dealing with high sodium diets. But, you want to make sure, that's why bananas are good as well, all right? So you want to make sure you're getting good potassium. Avocados have even more potassium than bananas. So, speak with your medical practitioner. But the sodium in celery juice, all right, should not be an issue. It's just very low in sodium. Thank you. Much blessing upon you. Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate that. Lester, you're very welcome. Thank you so much. Everyone's so kind today. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. So another one that we have to be careful of. All right, guys, we've talked all about heart issues, the risk of heart disease, with a high sodium diet. All right, we know that it can increase the risk of heart disease. All right, the other thing that we need to be careful of, all right, when it comes to, high sodium diets is chronic kidney disease, guys. It shares a lot of the same risk factors of cardiovascular disease when it comes to high salt intake. All right. We know that, high blood pressure can be a risk for both. That's the interesting thing and the sad thing. All right. And the reason why I want to point it out. All right. Chronic kidney disease. All right. High blood pressure can affect both cardiovascular health and kidney health. All right. There's links. All right. That show. All right. That when it comes to kidney health, all right, high salt intake results in high blood pressure, which can also cause kidney disease. All right, so there's a correlation between the two. All right, so make sure that we're aware of that as well. All right, so not only can high sodium diets affect our cardiovascular health, but it can also affect our kidney health as well. And a lot of the times that has to deal with high blood pressure. You guys can start to see a trend, all right, how sodium is so dangerous to increasing our blood pressure. And that's why it's such a big risk factor for cardiovascular disease, all right, and for chronic kidney disease. It's so funny though. The daily, like I say, the daily recommended intake changes from person to person. All right, because it depends on a lot of different stuff. All right, I'd say 2,300 is sort of your go-to. Some people will put it up to, or some institutes and things like that will put it up to somewhere around like 3,200, 3,500, 3,000 milligrams a day, things like that. I think if you're having 23 milligrams, all right, a day, then you're going to be in a good spot, because we have to remember we're eating foods now that are higher in sodium than they ever were before. All right, frozen foods, fast foods. And when I say fast foods, don't just think of the thing that comes to mind is like McDonald's, Wendy's, Subway, things like that. But Starbucks is more popular than ever. If you grab a sandwich from Starbucks, or you grab one of those little protein packages that's just going to have cheese, crackers, things like that, the sodium is going to be off the charts on that, guys. You can look up the nutrition facts online. It's super high. I mean, you can get 2,000, or at least I think the last time I saw it was like 1,500 milligrams just from one of those little protein packages, the healthy kind of choices that they have at things like Starbucks, all right, or other coffee shops. All right, things like that. So even the healthy choices, like I was mentioning salad before, with salad dressing can be a little bit detrimental and high sodium, and so detrimental to our overall brain health and body health. So just be careful with that. Water is suspect too. We're fighting. We are, yeah, we are definitely. All right. There's a lot of things, Michael, but you're right. As long as we're trying our best and taking the right steps, all right, that's the best we can do. All right. We might not win all of them. All right. But if we can win as many of them as we can, then we're going to be taking great steps to improving our overall health. But you're right, Michael. Absolutely. All right. And, people will get into discussions of GMO and all that stuff. All right, just try to win as many as you can. Take it day by day. I always tell people, try to make a 1% change every single day. If you try to cut out everything all at once or go for the home run, the chances of you succeeding, all right, and winning, as many battles as you can in terms of, and when I say battles, just things that are going to improve our overall health, the chances of that happening are just diminishing the more and more you add to your plate. Try to make those little 1% changes, guys. If you can make 1% changes every single day, so it might not even show up, all right? But if you do that over time, it's going to have great effects on your overall health. Maybe it's not adding salt to one meal of food, all right? And you do that 1 time a day, all right? Or you do that 3 times within a week. That's going to be 1% change right there. Now, that might be, something that's small over the course of 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but over 6 months and a year, that's going to be a huge change, and that's going to make a huge difference in your overall health, all right, and reduce some of the dangers of a high sodium diet for your brain and for your body. It's like compounding, guys. That's why I always say, and what Michael brought up before, that 1 to 1.5 pounds of weight loss. All right, to do that, we got to restrict calories a little bit, not too much. You don't want to over restrict because then you can't maintain. But if you can restrict so that you're in a deficit and then you increase, your exercise, those are all things that are going to be, compounding over time. Again, you might not see weight loss in 1 week or, a couple of days, but if you maintain it, like I was saying to Vivian, over 6 months, over a year, you're going to see tremendous changes. All right, guys? So just keep that in mind as well. So keep in mind to our body. Heart disease risk increase, all right? High blood pressure increase risk, all right? Stroke, kidney disease, guys. Kidney disease is the big one, but that's not the only one for heart health, all right? We can see that, high sodium diets can damage blood vessel walls. It can lead to hardening of the arteries, atherosclerosis, things of that nature, all right? Again, can lead to kidney disease, all right? And then over time, all right, because as a result of that, it's harder and harder for your body to get rid of excess fluids and especially wastes, all right? And we want to get rid of those wastes. That's why drinking more and more water is important as well. We want to flush out the waste and toxins from our body. If we're not doing that, all right, and we're having these long-term effects of high sodium diets, all right, it can lead to one, kidney disease, but also, all right, it's going to hurt, all right, and you're going to lose, it's going to hurt proper kidney function, all right, which can mean a number of different things, all right? So we could get into that, but I don't really want to get into that because it's very medical based. It would be something you want to speak with your medical practitioner. But we know over time, all right, if we're dealing with things like kidney disease, all right, the body being able to or not being able to get rid of excess waste, toxins, fluids from the body sufficiently, then over time, all right, that long period of time, the long-term effects, all right, you're losing out on proper kidney function. And again, that's going to have a huge detriment and danger to the overall brain and body. Sonia, thank you so much for the super chat. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much for your generosity. And it goes without saying, one of the biggest supporters on the channel. Thank you so much. It is greatly appreciated. And sorry if I didn't pick up on it right away. Sometimes I'll get into those kind of diatribes, especially pointing out something. But thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. And as I said, there'll never be a join function. I shouldn't say never, but right now there's not a join function. There's no Patreon. I want everyone to be able to get in here as much as possible and learn as much as possible. If you do feel like supporting the channel, just like Sonia has done, the super chat function is the best way to do that. Sonia, thank you so much. Greatly appreciated. And I hope, Sonia, you're getting a lot of value out of this chat. Thank you so much again. Alice, this is a good and much needed discussion. Thank you. Well, you're welcome, Alice. I think it is too. I think sodium and sugar are two of the most important things right now. We're just seeing the increase and the rise and then the detriment that is having on our overall health. And when I say overall health, again, I don't just mean body, I mean brain as well, mental health, all right? And those are two things, all right, we're just seeing more and more in the population, all right? More and more mental health issues, more and more cognitive impairment, more and more overall body health, heart disease, the biggest one that we've been talking about, heart disease, guys. All right, the silent killer. A quarter of the world's population is going to be dealing with some sort of risk factor that's related to heart disease. All right, and it's only going to go up. Only going up from there. Very soon it's going to be a third of the population, and that's because of a growing aging population. It's because of obesity levels. It's because of our diet, high sugar, high sodium, two of the biggest things that are going to affect heart disease, guys. And a very sedentary lifestyle, so people not being active. All right, and that's why I get out here and try to engage in these discussions as often as possible. Sonia, my pleasure. Well, thank you again so much, Sonia. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for supporting the chat and for supporting the channel. Greatly appreciated, Sonia. Like I said when you came in here, one of my biggest supporters, and I truly mean that. Thank you so much. So again, guys, just be careful with chronic kidney disease. Over time, all right, if we're not dealing with that high sodium diet, all right, Michael asked before, can we reverse? All right. Chronic kidney disease, once we start getting into that loss of kidney function, all right, it becomes more and more harder to reverse. All right, the organs like kidneys and things like that, the heart, all right, things like that, all right, over time, the more and more damage that's done, the harder and harder it is to reverse. All right, we talked a little bit about sugar, all right, pre-diabetes and diabetes, all right. We can reverse that type of stuff. Yes, you can reverse high blood pressure, but when damage is done, all right, it can be very tough, all right, and we really have to do a good job of getting ahead and preventing that damage from being done, because the reversal can be much harder and take much longer, all right, especially if we've been doing it over the course of 20 years and things of that nature. Jennifer, thank you for sharing this very interesting discussion. My pleasure, Jennifer. Thank you so much. I'm glad you guys are getting a lot out of the discussion, especially when it comes to high sodium, something that's just so predominant in the world today, and the same thing with sugar. Now, the other thing, and maybe surprising to some people, but when it comes to a high sodium diet, one of the other dangers for our body is not only going to be heart disease, all right, or chronic kidney disease. And then again, this is another one that's going to be hard to reverse, all right, but osteoporosis, the loss of bone mineral density. All right. And there's numerous studies to back that up now. And then so why? Especially numerous studies on postmenopausal women, all right, losing, I think I read an interesting study on menopausal women losing bone density, in a much more accelerated level than other individuals in the population. Now, why is it going to lead to osteoporosis? All right, that's the big question. How can a high sodium diet lead to osteoporosis? Well, for one, if we're having a high sodium diet, the more and more sodium that you're consuming, all right, the body is losing calcium through urination. So say that again, all right? When we eat more and more salt, all right, we lose calcium, all right, through, the process of urination and even the absorption of calcium, All right. It's one of those things. All right. And that's why it's another important point to bring up, and why this whole discussion is important. All right. High sodium diets can have a number of dangerous effects on the body. We know heart disease, we know chronic kidney disease. All right. But osteoporosis is one that is going to surprise some people, because, all right, it's going to not only reduce the absorption of calcium, but it's going to cause the body to lose calcium through the process of urination, those removing, when I said the toxins and waste, through the function of our kidneys. All right. And we know, all right, and if you don't, then one thing that we want to point out is, for our bones, calcium is vital. Calcium is vital and essential for proper bone formation, for proper bone health, and for proper bone mineral density, especially as we start to age. That's why I brought up postmenopausal women in these studies. All right. So, we see through numerous studies that sodium, high sodium intake in numerous studies, all right, a connection between bone loss due to the loss of calcium, all right, the absorption of calcium, all right, especially as we start to age. So, you can have all the calcium in the world, but if you're eating, a high sodium diet, then it's only going to negatively affect our bones and bone mineral density, guys, especially as we start to age. So why I point that out as well is because the long-term effects of consuming high sodium diets is really going to increase the risk of osteoporosis. All right. So the longer that we're having those high sodium diets, all right, the more and more these risk factors are going to be showing up, guys, especially when it comes to heart disease, kidney function, osteoporosis, the loss of bone mineral density. We need calcium, all right, for healthy bones. We need calcium for a number of reasons, all right, but osteoporosis is one of the risk factors for a high sodium diet. So just, be careful with that, guys, because that's one thing over the long term. Right? A lot of people that I work with will want to cut out sodium or sugar to lose weight, or I want to cut out, it's not even sodium. I want to cut out chips. I want to cut out fast food. And the reason why they want to do that is because they want to lose weight, or they want to look better. But the thing that we're not always cognizant of is that we should be cutting out these like high sodium foods, high sugar foods, not only to look better, but also to increase our overall health. There's a lot of people who don't see the correlation, or don't think of the correlation of cutting out sodium, or like chips or other like pretzels and things like that, crackers, even cheese, things that are going to be high in sodium. All right. Not because of just weight loss, but also to increase heart health, to increase cardiovascular health, to reduce inflammation through the body, to help kidney health, to reduce the risk of osteoporosis as we start to age. That's something that I really want to address. The health portion has to become before the aesthetic. And the aesthetic, the one thing, guys, the aesthetic comes and goes. The motivation to look better comes and goes. I see it all the time. People will really want to lose that 15 pounds, and then they do, and then the motivation just drops off. There's going to be a lot of, and it's not a bad thing, all right, to be motivated to want to lose weight. I think it's a great thing. But we should point out that the motivation is going to be a lot longer and a lot stronger, all right, for people who are doing it for their overall health. I don't know much more motivation for people who are wanting to reduce heart disease and reduce the risk of osteoporosis and all of that different stuff, and reduce, not hurt their kidneys and lose kidney function, all right, and allow waste and toxins to be removed through the body at an increased weight, and have that, ability for us, because if not, then we're only reducing our overall health. So, a lot of the times we'll think aesthetically, but we also have to think in terms of, overall health. So again, unprocessed foods, guys, are going to be your best friend. Unprocessed foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, other foods that are low in sodium, nuts and seeds, I'm a big proportion of. All right, you kind of want to stay away from, I'm not saying you have to stay away from all of this. This is the things that are often sometimes confused in my discussions and in my videos. All right. The one thing, some of the things that you might need to stay away from, guys, are like canned soups. You can make your own soups. I know canned soups are way more, time efficient. I know. All right. You can try to get reduced sodium. Even still, take a look at the label. Reduced, like 50% less salt is still going to be super high. Certain breads, savory snacks like chips, pretzels, like I already mentioned, crackers. The reason why I mentioned crackers is because that's one that goes unnoticed a lot of the time. A lot of people will have cheese and crackers and think that that's a good snack, but cheese is also going to be high in sodium. Looking better is just a plus. Being healthy is more important. 100%, Lindsay, 100%. I agree. And my job is to help people look better. It's a results-based game. But I'm also a big proponent, and that's why I love the nutrition side that I can provide. All right. Yes, it's good to look better, all right, but we need to make sure that we're healthy as well. The healthy, all right, and if we're, eating healthy, and if we're more healthy, then the aesthetic generally will come with it, all right, or there's a much better chance that the aesthetic will come with it. And when I say aesthetic, I just mean how we look, being more toned, putting on a little bit of muscle mass, losing body fat, all of that good stuff, all right. But some of the best people in the world, and it's sad to say, all right, but it's something that we have to bring up just because it's such a big thing that's going on in the world of bodybuilding. The days of that we're thinking of people who are in the fitness industry and nutrition industry. All right, there's been so many heart attacks of people who are in their 40s, all right, who you look at them and they absolutely look great. All right. So the aesthetic is there, but they're not at that healthy level. There's things that they're doing, all right, that's not causing them to be healthy. And it's very sad because these are some of the people, all right, that I've, followed for a number of years. But the health hasn't come first, and that's the sad part. And you hate to see it. And my heart goes out to all of them. It's just been way too many people over the last few months, losing people way too early. We should not be losing people to heart attacks who are in their early 40s or who are in their late 30s. All right, that's why these discussions are so important, I believe. So, there's a couple other ones I want to just point out, and I'll just point out again, thank you to Sonia. Sonia, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who has come into the chat. There's so many people that I wish to thank. I wish I could scroll up, sorry. But we have Jennifer, Lindsay, Lester, Michael. Sorry, I can't scroll up anymore. Alice, Susan. Sorry, I just can't see any more names other than that. But big thanks to Sonia. Again, if you're getting good value out of the discussions, we do this 2 times a week, by the way, Sundays and Wednesdays. So if you miss Wednesdays or last Sundays, I think they're very interesting topics. Last Sundays was on sugar. If you're getting good value from the chats, think about giving a thumbs up, which I really appreciate. And I see that we're at 33 thumbs up. Thank you so much for the thumbs up, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for engaging in the chat. I really appreciate that. And if you're getting good value from the discussions, as Sonia did, you can support the channel through the super chat function rather than, having a Patreon or something like that. The super chat function is the way to do that, as Sonia has done, and very generously. So thank you very much. I really do appreciate that. So a couple other things here, guys. All right. We need to, make sure that we're drinking more water. All right. And we already know, all right, one thing I don't like to get into too much, guys, all right, is discussions on cancer. I think, not coming from a medical background, all right, I have all the nutrition and I've read all the studies. All right, and look at that. The thumbs up are just flying up as I mentioned that. So thank you so much, guys. All right, but we have to acknowledge, just like I did with sugar, just like I did with our colon health discussion, all right, sodium, if we're trying to reduce, all right, the effects certain cancers, certain diseases, certain chronic illnesses, just like osteoporosis, just like kidney disease, just like cardiovascular disease. All right, we need to make sure that we're reducing high sodium diets. We need to make sure we're reducing our sodium intake, just if we want to make sure that we're reducing our risk of certain types of cancer. All right, and the reason why I have to bring that up is there's been several studies that have been linked to high sodium diets and a higher risk of stomach cancer. Numerous studies on that. If I didn't point that up, I'd almost feel like I was doing you a disservice. So we just have to make sure that we keep that in mind, even though I don't always, and you guys will see it in the videos, I don't point out, I don't always bring up the cancer effects or anti-cancer and things like that, especially with things like foods like blueberries, which are super high in antioxidants, which have, tremendous anti-cancer effects. I just don't always feel comfortable with it, but I think in this discussion, just with the amount of studies that have been, and these aren't small studies. Remember, I talk about the N factor, so the amount of people who are participating in these studies, it's not 10, 20, 100, hundreds, or even thousands. It's like 250,000 plus participants. All right, we're seeing, all right, who are eating just 3 grams of sodium per day. Remember, your daily recommended intake is about 2.4 grams. Just 3 grams of sodium per day are at a 68% higher risk of developing, stomach-related issues, things like stomach cancer, inflammation within the stomach lining, ulcers, things of that nature. Can you believe that if I didn't bring that up? 68%. I talk about significant increases. Usually a significant increase would be somewhere around like 20%. This is 68% just by having 3,000 milligrams. We know the average person, all right, and I think this might even be low, is eating somewhere around 3.5 milligrams of, or 3.5 grams of sodium per day. All right, and we know that 3 grams is giving us this significant consequence. So I just have to point that out. Please speak to your medical practitioner when it comes to any of that sort of stuff. But I just wanted to make sure we point that out. Again, ulcers, inflammation within the stomach, inflammation within the stomach lining, all going to make you much more vulnerable. You're going to be more vulnerable to that type of disease, those types of issues in diets that are rich in salt. All right. So, we've seen numerous studies on that. So just be careful with that as well. It can really affect the body in negative ways and the mind in negative ways as well. Lester, when we look at the food pyramid chart, it gives indication that sugar and salt should be used sparingly. Our diet should be, yes, chiefly comprised of grains, fruits, vegetables, protein, and some dairy. Absolutely. There's one pyramid that I really like. It starts out with water. Water is at the very bottom of the pyramid, and that makes sense. We can only go a couple days without water. Next would be your fruits and vegetables. Next would be sort of like your fruits, then your whole grains mixed in with like plant and animal type proteins. Exactly what you're saying, Lester. So you're exactly right. You see processed foods and you see fast foods at the very top of the pyramid, where it's like 0 to 1 time a week. So we already know that those high sodium foods just have no place in our diet. Gram to spoon, how many teaspoons can we get? Well, that's interesting. So great point, Lester. Thank you. Sophia, gram to spoon, how many teaspoons can we get? The daily recommended, don't use grams to. Okay. So it's quite interesting. I'm not exactly sure of the of what it would be for just a regular spoon, but I know it's a teaspoon of salt. So a teaspoon, I believe is it's hard for me to say exactly spoon to teaspoon. I just know that it's a teaspoon for a recommended daily value. You might be able to look that up on Google or something like that, but a teaspoon is your recommended daily value of salt intake there. I'm sorry, I don't know exactly gram to spoon, but but it's just 1 teaspoon per day. I think that's answering your question, Sophia. Sorry if I'm not. I'll just point out that when I was doing the research, 1 teaspoon, which is about equivalent to 2.4 grams of sodium. So again, just be careful with all that, guys. We know that we need to, have a diet that's low in sodium, somewhere in and around that 2.4 grams or less. All right. We do need some sodium in our diet. Absolutely. But again, as low as you can get. Same thing. It's the sugar. Sugar is kind of like as little as possible. All right. We don't want sugar in our diet. All right, there's just no nutritional value unless you're having pink Himalayan salt. There's no minerals in table salt, or if it is, it's like very, very low, hardly anything at all. And again, it's only causing us issues, only causing us health issues. All right, not only for the body, but also for the brain as well. And we talked a lot about that: cognitive impairment, mood disorders, less focus, blood vessel dysfunction within the brain, inflammation within the brain, which again can bring a number of different issues and health consequences. Inflammation is just one of those things, and high sodium diets can create inflammation throughout the entire body. And by creating higher inflammation, all right, we're increasing the risk of many different chronic diseases, heart disease being a big one of them, guys. And then that's why we talk so much about heart disease. Man, we've been going for 2 hours. I feel like I love doing these chats in the morning. How much yogurt should I be eating? I eat the 2-gram yogurt every day mixed with whipped cream. I feel like I'm hooked on it. Is this good? With whipped cream, I would say probably not, Alice. Unless even if it's like the low calorie whipped cream. How much yogurt sort of depends on like your macronutrient goals. All right. Is there added sugar to your yogurt? What type of yogurt is it? I eat the 2-gram yogurt every day. So 2 grams of sugar. And would this be like a Greek yogurt? Something along those lines, Alice. Again, it just sort of depends on your macronutrient goals. So how much protein, how much carbohydrates, fats, fiber you're trying to get into your diet. Now, yogurt's not bad at all, especially if there's no added sugar. Okay, great. So that's a great start. You don't want added sugar. Perfect. All right. With the whipped cream, is it the like no calorie whipped cream, Cool Ramp? Okay, so Greek yogurt. So that makes sense. That's sort of what I figured. So that's a good protein source. Again, you don't have to have like 1% or skim Greek yogurt. You can have 2%. All right. If the lower you go, the more dairy sugars you're getting. It's not a bad thing to eat. You can get good probiotics from yogurt, all right, and from dairy. All right, we talked a little bit about how that can help with colon health, especially if you're not sensitive to dairy or anything like that. There's good calcium in that, so it's going to help. Because it's going to help with osteoporosis, and especially, we've talked a little bit about that with high sodium diets. I'd just be a little bit careful with the whipped cream. I don't know if it's low calorie. Even still, there's no nutrients or anything like that really in it. But if it's like the low calorie, again, it just sort of depends how much sugar, how you're hitting your macronutrient needs, and things of that nature. Well, I think we'll end it there, guys. Thank you so much for the support. Big shout out to Sonia. Sonia, thank you so much for your super chat. I really appreciate it today. And then again, if anyone else is getting good value, again, the best way to support the channel is just through that super chat function. And the thumbs up. We hit 35 thumbs up today. We had a strong 2-hour discussion, and like I said, I've been putting about 4 hours of discussion time per week into these live streams. So I hope you're getting a ton of value. That doesn't include the research, the setup, and all of that stuff. I love doing it for you guys. So any of support that you can give back to the channel and to the live streams is greatly appreciated. And again, the best way to do that is through the super chat function, and your thumbs up. About the same time, Alice, on Wednesdays in the morning, just usually before my work, I'll always give a reminder. I was a little bit late today just because it wasn't being set up properly. That's why I was going through a couple issues technically. So I had to wake up super early this morning and get it out there. So at least the reminder was set a couple hours before we were about to go live. But it's usually like a Wednesday morning in and around the same time. All right, so 2 hours earlier from now. All right, that's usually the time that we'll go live. All right, and we're going to talk again about another interesting topic. All right, another interesting topic. I'm really enjoying these live streams. Thank you so much for all of the support. The thumbs up on all of the videos have been truly amazing. I can't believe it. I'll look at the thumbs up, and just so grateful for all you guys supporting the channel and enjoying the videos. And again, at the end of the day, I hope you're getting a ton of value from these chats and learning something new and having your questions answered as well. Again, always remember our discussions are, today was the dangers of high sodium diet for your brain and body. But again, we're not opposed here, and I'm not opposed to answering questions that you might have, like Alice just had, and Michael had, and other people have had throughout. Sonia, I think, had. Other people have had throughout the discussion as well. That's definitely an option. I put that right in the description as well. Like if we read the description of most of them, all right, it'll be like we're talking about this topic, but feel free to ask your questions as well. All right, so I want to make sure that you guys are you're welcome to ask your questions during our live streams as well. It's the best way to really interact live rather than just in the comments. So Lester, you're top notch. Well, thank you very much, Lester. I appreciate that. I'm glad you guys are enjoying the live streams. I'm glad you guys are enjoying the information that's being put out there in the videos and in the live stream. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sonia, again. Appreciate you. And it's just going to keep going on from here, guys. Daily videos, like I said, trying to get those videos up in the morning for you guys. Live streams every Wednesday and Sunday. Again, we hit over 2 hours today, so thank you very much for coming in and listening for that. And again, I'm excited for Wednesday. Wednesday should be a very good topic. All right, another very interesting topic. All right, thank you, Sonia. Appreciate you. Appreciate you as always. Like I said, one of our biggest supporters here. Thank you so much to everyone else for supporting the channel. And big shout out to Sonia. So I will see you guys. Oh, that's awesome, crossing the line. There you go, Cody. Is that your dog? I remember you were saying before you were going for a walking the dog while listening to the podcast and the live stream here. So that's great to hear. I hope you're enjoying it. So I'll leave you guys there. We'll be back on Wednesday for our next discussion. Looking forward to it. The info is mind-blowing. Thanks so much. You're very, very welcome, Michelle. My pleasure doing it for you. And again, thank you very much, guys. I will talk to you live on Wednesday. Be on the lookout for more videos every single day. And again, I appreciate you. Have a safe and happy Sunday.